Contact Poi. It's one of the most visually impressive forms of poi spinning and manipulation out there, but where to begin with it? Drex here from Drex Factor Poi, sharing with you the love of poi spinning and flow arts to benefit your body and brain, and today I'm going to take you through what I think are the first 5 tricks that you ought to learn when getting into Contact Poi. But before we dive in, I just want to give a quick shout out to the friends of the channel. Big thanks to Dark Monk, Fire Mecca, Flow Fests, Flow Toys, Juggling Calling, Pyroterra Light Toys, Spin Balls, and Ultra Poi for helping to make the videos on this channel possible. You can learn more about all these awesome companies and the work that they're doing to support flow artists like yourself by checking out the links down in the description of this video. And special thanks to the non-business friend of the channel, Becca Bekkonen. Thank you so very much for supporting my channel, my work, and my mission. So Contact Poi is kind of a weird outlier in the world of poi in that it's not reliant on a lot of the techniques that are required for learning a lot of traditional poi spinning. And this is something that can both work for as well as against us, because it doesn't require us to know all of those fundamental principles, but it does require us to learn a whole bunch of brand new ones that have nothing to do with the first set. So with that in mind, if you're interested in learning Contact Poi, I have 5 tricks that I think you ought to start your journey with that I think are going to set you up for success down the road. And we're going to go ahead and start that journey off with trick number 1, the cradle. Okay, so this isn't technically a trick in and of itself, but it is a technique that pretty much everything else on this list and that you will ever learn in the Contact Poi world is going to either benefit from or absolutely require. A lot of Contact Poi tricks require us to find ways of balancing that ball-shaped head, and our natural inclination is to grab at it. The problem being that this is actually counterproductive to maintaining stability in this position. So one of those first hurdles that we have to get over in learning how to do Contact Poi is learning how to catch the ball by extending our fingers rather than clutching them together. You can begin to practice this technique by extending your fingers as far as they'll go and then bending them back upwards away from your palm. From here, you want to balance the ball on top of your hand and work to try and extend your fingers further every time you feel the ball becoming unstable. Walk around like this and even give yourself some shocks to either side and see if you can train yourself to create that bowl rather than creating a fist. Now, fair warning, this is going to take a little bit of time for you to learn because you're basically rewiring a bunch of reflexes in your brain. But the good news is that it helps set you up for success down the road, including my next pick. Trick number 2, inner forearm rolls. Alright, so we're finally rolling the poi along our body, and I'm giving you what is probably the most intuitive way to do this. The setup for this is pretty simple. You just spin the tether backwards as you're holding the head of the poi, and then you simply release the head. If you've done this right and lined up the tether properly, you'll wind up with the tether finding its way back to your hand right about the time that the head rolls off at the end of your elbow, hopefully allowing you to make a perfect catch. I mean, described like that, it sounds simple enough, so what's the big deal, right? Well, there happen to be 2 things about this that you're gonna need to learn that are going to be true of pretty much every other contact roll that you ever learn. The first of these techniques is figuring out how to line up the tether as it spins before you initiate the contact roll. As it turns out, every single contact roll requires the tether to give it momentum and direction. Therefore, you don't want to start this roll with the tether just spinning parallel to your forearm. You want to actually have it at a slight angle. That way, it's guided to the outside of your elbow rather than straight back into the middle of it. In addition, there's another reflex you're going to have to train yourself out of. Every time we feel something falling or rolling along one of the surfaces of our body, we want to create a ramp for it. Unfortunately, this also makes the roll more unstable. You want to keep the surface that the poi is rolling across as flat as possible. Again, this is going to take a little bit of practice to get down. Cool, so if you've got down the basics of knowing how to do the cradle, as well as knowing how not to create a ramp with your forearm, then you're ready for my next pick. Trick number 3, the outer forearm roll. Alright, so this without a doubt is the classic contact poi roll that most people associate with the genre. It was first invented by Ronan McLaughlin more than a decade ago, and it is still a classic. To initiate this move, we're going to start in the cradle. That is, you're going to have the tether dropping between your index and middle fingers, and the head balanced on the top of your hand. From here, you're going to swing the tether back and forth like a pendulum until you feel it tap against the edge of the bone in your elbow. From here, you're going to give your wrist a very, very small flick and let the ball roll all the way along your forearm until it gets to the end of your elbow. If you've lined up the roll properly, you should find that the handle winds up back in your hand right as the head is falling off the end of the elbow. Again, things to watch out for. You want to avoid having your forearm go up and create a ramp. You're going to lose control of the ball if that happens. And also too, you're probably going to want to come at this from an angle that you have your forearm in front of you as though you're trying to block a karate chop. I know a lot of people that first learned how to do this roll kind of off on a diagonal, and when it came time to chain that roll together with other moves, they had to relearn how to do it. Of course, my favorite presentation for this roll is to start it from a throw, namely an isolated throw in which you fling the handle around forwards and then catch the head on the back of your hand. From here, you can just simply do a quick flick with your wrist and continue on the contact roll. Once you catch the tether, you can do the whole thing again. Marvelous. Okay, so thus far we've covered a lot of the basics as well as how to do inner forearm rolls and outer forearm rolls. Now we're going to start getting into some more nuanced stuff that's going to set you up for some of my favorite tricks down the road. Starting with trick number 4, reverse outer forearm roll. So yeah, on the surface of it, this one doesn't look that much different from the trick that we just learned, but it does have some really specific elements that I think are important to get down sooner rather than later. This trick is almost the evil doppelganger of the trick that we just learned. Rather than starting from a cradle and initiating a roll from there, we're trying to get to a cradle. Doing this involves taking the poi with one hand and wrapping it around the elbow of the opposite hand. From here, we flick the tether and we initiate a roll all the way down to landing in cradle. From here, we have the option to reverse the roll back with that outer forearm roll that we just learned in our last section, and completing 2 rolls in one. Now granted, it's rare that I see people performing this roll anymore, and I think that's kind of a shame. Not only does it teach you some interesting things about how to continue momentum that starts from one place and ends in another, but also too, it is a really good stepping stone for getting towards things that involve more compound paths. We have to think of momentum in a different way with this roll. Rather than getting to start the momentum from the hand that is connected to the forearm that the poi happens to be rolling across, we're now initiating it from elsewhere and just continuing that momentum. We have to do a little bit of adjustment here in order to keep the poi rolling along the line that we want it to be. This is going to be really important for things like folding lines down the road. So before I share with you my final pick for the 5 contact poi tricks that you should start with, I do have a favor to ask. If you've come this far, I'm guessing that means that you have an interest in poi tricks and maybe in learning poi in general, and I have great news for you. I produce lots of videos on poi and flow arts in general. So if you want to check out more of those videos, the best way to do it is to subscribe to the channel. Not only does that mean that you are the first to know every time I drop a new video, but it also helps my videos find a new audience. Please go ahead and sign up to subscribe sooner rather than later. Thank you in advance. So now, my final pick for which contact poi trick you should start with is trick number 5, the inner forearm catch and release. So straight up, this trick absolutely baffled me when I first saw people performing it. There was something about the catch of the tether and having it wrapped around your forearm that just did not compute for me. Now I've got a better understanding that what's really happening here is we've lined up the tether in such a way that it winds up wrapped around the forearm as we reach up to catch it. Now, this also becomes a great way to reverse the roll, just like we saw in our last example too. This is also kind of cool because it's one of those rare examples in contact poi where we actually wind up with a suspension. That is, we can pause the movement of the poi for a second and strike a pose if we'd like to there. It's also a great way just to like halt the poi for a second as you're in the middle of a combo. Say you want to really emphasize the thing that's going to come next, so you use a little bit of stillness to build the tension. And even better, when you get this down, you can put it together with that outer forearm roll that we talked about in our last section and produce the folding line, which is without a doubt my favorite contact poi trick. Both of these tricks are absolutely essential for getting this one down. So what did you think of my list? Are there contact poi tricks that you would put on your list that I didn't put on mine? Leave me a comment and let me know what they would be. And if you'd like to get full tutorials on most of the tricks on this list, plus a few others, I did a series of Contact Poi tutorials a few years ago that was sponsored by Ultra Poi. I will go ahead and leave a link to that playlist down in the description as well as up in the cards. Please check it out if you're interested in learning more. This video would not be possible were it not for my awesome supporters on Patreon. In particular, I'd love to give a shout out to my Flow patrons who are listed on screen right now. Thank you all so much for supporting my channel and my mission. And if you out there watching are enjoying my videos and you'd like to see me make more of them, there's a great way that you can help out, and that is to head over to Patreon and sign up over at patreon.com/DrexFactorPoi. Not only are there a lot of awesome rewards available over there, but also too, that will make it possible for me to devote more time to creating videos rather than having to teach private lessons or other things to bring money in that take me away from producing videos. So if you want to see more of these, that's the way to do it. And if you want the inside scoop on even more crowd-pleasing poi tricks, you should check out my top 5 poi tricks with wow factor. I'll go ahead and include a link to that down in the description as well as up on screen. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure to get out and flow yourselves today, and I'll see you with a new video real soon. Take care now. Peace.